Good evening. Hi, it's Sarah here from First Aid from Families. I hope you are all well and had a lovely day. I'm sorry I haven't been on for about must have been a week now. I don't know what happened to last week. I was supposed to come on last Friday and it just didn't happen. So sorry about that. But I'm here today and I'm going to talk to you about heat exhaustion. So I'm just going to wait to see if anyone pops on. I know I'm... Well, 6:45 is not ideal because normally people with children are putting those children to bed around this time. But my husband's doing that for me tonight, so I could talk to you guys now. But if you don't pop on, that's absolutely fine. I'll talk anyway, and then you can always catch up later on. So, we talked last week about heat exhaustion. And obviously how we can deal with heat exhaustion and what we need to do about that. But today I want to talk about heat stroke. So heat stroke is definitely a step beyond heat exhaustion, and it's a really serious medical condition, and it shouldn't be underestimated, and we need to make sure that we recognise those signs and symptoms of heat stroke so that we can actually then deal with it quickly, because if we can't, then that person can deteriorate quite quickly. Hi Emma, how are you? So, right, heat stroke, what happens? Basically, it's your body's inability to cool itself down. So your internal thermostat, it can't regulate the temperature, your body temperature. And remember, last week we talked about heat exhaustion is when your temperature is going up to about 40 degrees. Now, heat stroke is when the body is going, the internal core is going beyond 40 degrees C, which obviously can be very, very dangerous, okay? Obviously your thermostat normally regulates the temperature, but it obviously can't for whatever reason, and we need to make sure that we can reduce that temperature as quickly as possible. So recognition then of getting exhaustion and stroke mixed up. Recognition of heat stroke, so headache and discomfort and dizziness. So a little bit the same of the heat exhaustion, restlessness and confusion. The person can also get quite aggressive as well. Aggression is another symptom of heat stroke, but also of the body going into shock. We haven't spoke really too much about shock, but it is a very key aspect of shock, and it happens in the later stages. So it's that person is in a very serious condition at this point in time. So they could be hot, flushed with dry skin, rapid deteriorating level of responsiveness. So communication and keep talking to them is really, really important just to gauge that level of responsiveness. Full bounding pulse as well. So if you can actually feel for a pulse, it will be a bounding pulse, and the body temperature will be above 40 degrees C. So that's around 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So a dangerous temperature there. So what we need to do is we need to get that casualty to a cool place. So into the shade, remove as much of their outer clothing as possible. Help the casualty to sit down. Don't lie them down, but sit down. And then what we need to do is sort of like put some pillows around just to support them, but remember not to try and overheat them. If you can, get a cool or a soaking wet sheet or a blanket, and if you haven't got that, then sponge that person down. You're going to wrap that person in the blanket or the sheet, so that's cold water. And what we need to do is, sorry, there's a fly buzzing around, and what we need to do is to keep doing that until the temperature is or falls to 38 degrees, and that's if you're taking the temperature under the tongue, 37.5 if you're taking it or the temperature from the armpit. Okay, so we need to get that body temperature down and keep putting water onto that casualty and monitoring level of responsiveness as you do that, but it's important we get that body temperature down as quickly as we can. So once the casualty's temperature appears to have reduced to those numbers that we talked about, so 38 degrees to 37 degrees, or 37.5 degrees, then what we need to do is take the wet clothing off and then wrap them in a dry sheet, okay? Because what we don't want them to do is go the other direction too quickly. Monitor their vital signs, so keep communicating with them, making sure that you're aware of any other conditions that they might have, if they've fallen over or anything due to the heat stroke, then again we need to attend to those wounds. But it really is important to keep monitoring them. We spoke about vital signs last week, so checking for the pulse, breathing, and levels of consciousness. And the best way is just to keep talking to the casualty as much as you can. Now, has anyone had to ring 999 before? I know I have, for several different reasons. But the one I had to make to the ambulance is because somebody had fallen down in the street. So I wanted to get to an ambulance to them as quickly as possible. Now, the first thing, sorry, that fly is buzzing around my head. The first thing that I was asked before I was asked any details, my name, was basically, are they breathing? So that's a really important, vital sign that we need to be looking for. And that's the first thing the emergency services are going to want to know about. Now, we'll come back to heat stroke in a minute. But what I wanted to see if anyone knew or heard of the analogy Dr. ABC at all. So DRABC. And what that means and how that can actually help us if we're trying to gauge responsive levels of breathing and things like that. So has anyone heard of that? I'm sure, Emma, you have. I'm sure you've done your paediatric first aid as well. Okay, so Dr. ABC. We will be covering this later on, but it's really important, okay, that we go through this Dr. ABC. Now, D, it stands for dangers. We've got to look around to make sure there's no danger to ourselves or that casualty. So let's say that person is suffering from heat stroke. They're in the middle of a place where people could sort of like run over them in cars, or it could be a danger to their lives, and we need to get that casualty somewhere nice and safe. So that's D. R is for responsiveness, and we need to get a level of responsiveness of that casualty. If we can't get responsive from that casualty, we're not really going to know if they're breathing or not. So good communication is key. A, airway. We need to open airways up to make sure that person is breathing. So if you're not getting a response, we need to open airways to see if there's anything stuck in the airway, let's say, or give that person a chance to breathe on their own with the airway open. B is for breathing, checking for breathing. And can anyone, or does anyone know how long we check breathing for when we're checking a casualty for breath? Who have we got there? Anna as well, and Emma. It's 10 seconds. Okay, so it's 10 seconds check for breathing. All right, so that's where our B is. And C in our Dr. ABC is circulation or check for bleeding. So we can either use circulation or check for bleeding. At the end of the day, we're looking for a bleed. If someone is bleeding, then their blood is not circulating correctly. It's not staying within their body. So we need to look for that. So that's what our Dr. ABC is. So that can help us if we're trying to gauge level responsiveness of the casualty. So if they're not communicating with us, they go unconscious, then we definitely need to jump into airway, breathing and circulation there. Okay. So has anyone got any questions about heat stroke? It sounds like heat stroke, it doesn't, only happens to people in hot countries, but I mean, we're in, I don't know, we've been so lucky since lockdown, let's say. We've had some wonderful weather, running around outside, and yeah, it's been really, really nice. But yeah, in the UK, we have, and it is sort of like increasing, but in 2016 they had an average of 2,000 deaths associated with heat related illnesses. So you can see people are dying because of heat stroke and people with the heat issues there. So it's not to be underestimated at all. Okay. Hi Alex, how are you? You alright? So yeah, so we need to make sure that we don't underestimate. I can't even speak today. I think I should hit the gym sooner than later, really. Underestimate heat stroke. Has anyone got any questions? If not, don't worry now. When you watch this back, if you watch this back, then just pop me some comments below, and hopefully I'll be able to answer those for you. Alex, you're on a call. That's all right. That's absolutely fine. No problem at all. I keep changing the times of these Facebook Lives. I'm going to try and stick to one time so that most people will actually be able to make those. But at the end of the day, I'm just grabbing an opportunity to speak to you today. I will try and get another one in, another Facebook Live, hopefully end of the week. I'm not too sure what I'm going to do. I might do shocks for that one. I'm not sure. But we'll see. But thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a lovely weekend. Oh, weekend? See, I don't even know what day it is. It's Tuesday, isn't it? Have a lovely week. I'll see you at the end of the week, and then have a lovely weekend when you get there. All right, take care. Bye.